Hi, Jen.
Hi there.
Hey, Ron.
How we doing?
Okay, good.
Hi, Ron. You probably don't remember me, but I used to live in.
Remember you, Jennifer? Sure I do. Yeah,
Good to see you.
good to see you. I don't know if you've been up our road, but the farmers that are doing that area now, and that farm are taking wonderful care of it. So it looks really nice across the street.
Good. Yeah, I thought they had goats or something there.
No, they've got cows. They got little cows, some kind of miniature cows or something, but they're brown cows, but they're
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I haven't been there. This summer I'll go visit Dawn and Louise actually. So.
but yeah, they they've redone all the fencing all the way up to the mobile home park and stuff. And,
Nice.
they really, the cows graze all the way from the barn all the way up towards the road, and it's
Cool.
good to see them. And I got to say, they work really hard at what it is to keep up with fence lines and all those good things. So.
Just trying to make sure I got all my documents open here, ready to look at. Okay. Let's see. Here. Ron, Reese. Wendy is on the call, but she doesn't have voice or video. She's apparently she emailed me.
I told her to text me if she had any questions.
Yeah. Ray's not going to be able to make it. Mike Tucker said he was going to be on the call, and Terrence was going to try to make it. He had something this morning, but he was going to try to. He might be a little bit late. So. Let's see.
Don or Patrice, did we hear from Kelly or Matt about the DOH rep?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay, I'll remind him.
Yeah,
I haven't heard anything either.
Yep. All right, so I think we can probably get started. Mainly, I sent out minutes from the last meeting. They were 1 year and 5 days ago from today was our last meeting. We thought we were all gung-ho, ready to go. Hi, Mike. Welcome. But things stalled a little bit. So we are back. We have a signed contract all ready to go. The last step here is to just put the final touches on the RFP for our consultants. It will then go to DEC for their last look before they give us the okay to send it out. I have been communicating with DEC as much as I can, so our hope is that they won't have any major comments about it before we can send it out. Hopefully, end of June. I'm thinking. Kind of depends on how fast DEC sends it back to us. But it looks like we could potentially send this out, publish it at the end of June. I'm hoping anyway. But I think the purpose of today's meeting is really mainly, we can talk about the RFP in general, but mainly we want to go over how we're going to evaluate the proposals that we get back. So I sent you all that like one page that outlines what's in the RFP about how we're going to evaluate the proposals. And I just want you pretty much just kind of open it up to some discussion about whether they think those are complete. That list of evaluation criteria, whether it's complete, whether they're worded properly, so the consultant can understand what we're asking for. And if, even, the evaluation numbers, if we want to adjust some of the weights that we're applying to some of those criteria. So Dave, you had your hand up first. Yep, mute.
I'm muted. Okay, there we go.
Yep.
Anyway, thanks, Don, for moving this along, and Patrice and everyone else that's been involved. I know it's been a long process. Appreciate all the effort. I'm glad we're at this point. So this looks good, I thought, but I would just maybe add a few small tweaks. So on the second 10-point criterion, it says including identifying stakeholders in hard-to-reach populations. Perhaps we want to add including identifying and soliciting feedback from, just because we really want to make sure that they're providing a holistic, kind of, they're really thinking about not just like checking the box, but really trying to draw out feedback. And I think that's an important part of it.
Yeah.
On the first bullet, or the first point, previous experience, maybe we want to say including examples of prior work on CAPS or prior climate action planning work. So we specifically encourage them to provide us with not only their description of what they've done, but examples. I'm sure they would if they were relevant, but it doesn't hurt to ask. And then the bullet that is fourth to the last, quality of the proposed tasks, strategy development methodology, project timeline, and use of resources seemed a little unclear to me what that actually was getting at. I don't know whether it's getting at an overall assessment of like the process and the timeline, but if so, maybe we want to rewrite it or add something on that, something along the lines of proposed plan, process, tasks, deliverables, and timeline, just to try to, in one place, describe that we want to see a description of how you're going to pull this off over the whole, describing the process.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what that is intended to do, but maybe we could clean it up.
Yeah, I think that's an important one, because I think that's, in my mind, that's the one that I'm going to probably look at the most. Do they understand what we want? What is the quality of the proposed task? How much bang are we going to get for the bucks that we are spending?
Yeah.
Mainly. So, what's your suggestion again?
Well, it says quality of the proposed tasks, strategy development methodology. I don't really understand what that is supposed to mean. Project timeline is good, and use of resources. Use of resources is kind of that could be more granular, but that's captured in the cost proposal, maybe below. So maybe that's relevant there. Maybe it's not. But I think I want to see what is their plan described over the life of the project. What is their description of kind of the plan and the process, the tasks. So maybe there's some strategy there on specific aspects of it that they want to describe there. What are the tasks to achieve that strategy? The deliverables aren't, specifically asked for, although of course they'll provide that. We tell them what we want, but if they could describe how they're going to kind of produce those deliverables, something along those lines. I may be getting too granular, too specific, but anyway, I think Ron and Brenda have something to add.
Yep, Ron.
So yeah, the last bullet point is, minority women-owned businesses, and I think we could probably drop that all together, because that's a requirement of the contract itself. So we're not going to accept it unless it does qualify with those things. And I would certainly easily move that 5 points up to the cost proposal. I think 5 points for the overall cost proposal is low somehow. I thought.
Yeah, but I think with our discussion, correct me if I'm wrong, Patrice, but I think with our discussion with Marissa, that she said we may have to keep that in there as part of our evaluation criteria. I'm trying to recall what she said, but I think there's a reason we put that in there.
It's spelled out in the contract that that's part of the requirement of the overall contract, that you have to comply with this. So, I mean, if we want to
Yeah.
use it, that's fine, but I still thought that the cost proposal 5 points was too low, so I didn't know if we needed to.
Yeah, well, it is a requirement of the contract that we comply with with that level of participation. And we have to show at least an effort that we've tried to comply, even though the consultant may not qualify as a minority or woman-owned business or a service and disabled veterans business. We have to at least show that we went out and tried, made an effort to get some proposals from firms that
Yep, no, I'm very
that
familiar with that.
qualified. And if a proposal comes back that does completely meet those qualifications, then that would score higher than one that doesn't. So,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, we can adjust the weighting of that, but I think with discussions with Marissa that we have to keep that in as some measure of our evaluation criteria.
No, I could see that because, like you say, if somebody completely qualifies for that with the business, then we don't have to go through the exercise of proving that we attempted it. So that could score points. I was just thinking if they didn't comply, then we can't have the contract. But yeah, I could see you using that.
Yeah, it's yeah, your voice is a little fuzzy on my end, Ron. So, but
Sorry.
yeah, if they don't comply with that, it doesn't disqualify them.
Right.
Paul. But it puts more of the pressure on us to make sure that we went out and tried to find someone. But if they do qualify, if they do meet all that qualifications, then it's like easy. You know, we still have to fill out the forms and document how much effort they put into it for that. But then it's much easier for us to cross that, check mark off the list. So, Brenda, you had a.
So I was going to give and circle back to David's question. I had questions about the use of the word quality as well, and it wasn't clear to me whether we wanted to do an analysis or comparison or compliance, evaluation. How well did they hit all of the benchmarks that we asked for? But I think quality is too general or broader word if that's what we're after. But is that what we're after? Is how well did they respond to what was or how did they meet or exceed all of the requirements that we asked for? Is that what we're looking for, that question? I mean, there's complete and there's complete, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Is that where you were headed, David, or am I in a different place than you are?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. It's like the degree to which the thoroughness of the description of their plan, their process to test, how they will, develop their strategy. I don't know if thoroughness is the right word, but I agree with you that quality is a little subjective.
Yeah. Okay. Thoroughness. Yeah, I can do a little thesaurus surfing, and yeah, thoroughness I think is probably the better description. Terrence,
Or comprehensiveness, completeness.
Thoroughness, completeness. Yeah.
Comprehensive, something along those lines.
Okay. Okay.
Do we have any sense? It's been so long. I'm sorry, I don't remember. Do we have any sense of how far our $90,000 will go? Do we really think that if this is a reasonable ask for $90,000, or, are people going to be, kind of cutting corners to fall within a acceptable bid amount?
Good question.
And Jennifer, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to butt in. I apologize.
From my experience, I think it is, Brenda. I know that, Albany, I think it was, I forget if it was the city or the county. I think it was the city of Albany recently, did one of these. It was both government and community, and they spent 120,000. That's a much larger
Right, area.
population, a more complicated, both county and city. If it was either one, I think it's a little more complicated situation, but that's what their bill was. That's what they, 120,000. But I think a long time ago we had talked to a couple of folks, and some other, many years ago, before we had even thought about doing a cap, I think that we were under the impression that was a fairly reasonable number, possibly even too much.
Yeah, I mean, they're not having to create the
Yeah.
greenhouse gas inventory, which is a key,
Yeah.
baseline piece of this. They're using CDRPCs and Don's government operation, the planning department's government operations. They will have to integrate that, and interpret that, but they don't have to create it, which is a huge task. We're asking them to do a little more on incorporating the land use forest work, wherever that goes. But I don't know if Albany needed to if that included doing their inventory, or they did something similar to what we're doing.
My one additional comment would be that I do think the aspect that we're asking for on the land use is something that we're gonna, my expectation is that there isn't going to be anyone around that's going to be able to respond very satisfactorily to that request. And so if they were really doing like a great job on that, the price is probably fine, if not too small. But the reality is I don't think that's going to really happen anyway. So can I just follow up on the two comments I had from before? One was in response to Ron's point. I do think that having the points there on the list requires them to actually explain, because there are degrees of them meeting that requirement. And I would like them to elaborate on the ways in which their proposal, meets that criteria. So I like having it on there, and I'd want us to have the opportunity to rate them on that aspect. I had some other comments on other bullet points, but that I stuck in the chat that I had sent to Dawn yesterday, but if we're still on other things, I'm happy to wait on that.
Okay. Go ahead, Jen.
Okay, so the first one had to do with the software modeling comment, and I just wasn't sure. I mean, I wouldn't use that phrase from my perspective, and I just wasn't sure what you were getting at with. Do you mean?
I think that's just my
my
personal phrasing of it, because software modeling is you're using software to model a system, whereas
I mean, all modeling has to use software, and it wouldn't in the field, you wouldn't say it that way. So I was just wondering if there was a slight revision on the way to say that point. Then the other thing had to do.
Staying on that, what would be the proper phrasing then?
Software used to model. I mean, are you referring specifically to the greenhouse gas part, or what is the modeling that you're actually talking about there?
Yeah, I was wondering if that might be it, if it's just modeling greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, in my, what I stuck in the chat, I had a suggestion there. I don't know if
I think
that's,
that was understanding software, yeah, another digital. So I
maybe
think
just
maybe
modeling.
that's just like the understanding of how some of the models you used in with your BARD students, just understanding how that works. And
Yeah, maybe just remove the word software because it
Yeah.
wouldn't,
okay,
and that'll make it a little bit more easy to understand. And then my other comment had to do with the phrasing on the bullet about the rural land use. And I just wondered, knowledge of unique issues facing rural communities is one thing. And I think that kind of sounds like, economic constraints for people in rural areas. And then, then it says particularly ag and forestry land uses and their contribution to greenhouse gas. I was just wondering if that could be separated up. Maybe I just suggested demonstrating knowledge of rural communities similar to Columbia County. So removing the issues part, particularly ag, forest,
yeah,
and other.
we could separate that into two different.
Yeah, I
Well-
mean, because I do think understanding kind of the pressures that people that are trying to make a living from the land are under is also important when you're talking about strategies to reduce emissions. Everything that you do is going to have an
Yeah.
impact on how hard it is for them to do what they do. So 2 sentences there might make
Yeah.
more sense.
It would give us an opportunity to add some points to that area too. I mean, that's the other issue, thing we should look at is, are these weighted properly? If we split that into two, do we want to weight them at both at 10 points each, or split it into 5 points each, or what? David? Dave,
Maybe he's muted.
you're muted. Muted, Dave.
Sorry. I think I was going to say something different. I think breaking that into 2 separate would be reasonable, 5 points each. Demonstrate knowledge of issues facing rural communities. I don't know if we want to say socioeconomic, or we want to be any more specific about what kind of issues we're talking about. If we're really talking about the rural nature, the fact that we have a lot of farms and all the issues and challenges there, and we have forest and we have natural areas, we're rural, or is it more on like the socioeconomic side that we're looking for them to those are the issues that we're focused on. I do think we could break that down more and get into that more. It would be interesting. A lot of these caps are done pretty cookie cutter, and they wouldn't apply to, they wouldn't translate over directly to some of the particular issues of our area. We've made that clear in the kind of forest and ag side, but maybe there's like a social and economic aspect to it too that's particular to rural communities. Mike, I don't know if you have a thought on that.
He's looking. Still muted, Mike.
Sorry, it's microphone right in the middle to the left of the center at the bottom.
Uh-oh.
He'll sign back on. I'm sure.
Yeah.
But so with the
When this was written, Don, what were the unique issues that were in mind? Was it like ag and forestry, because you point that out particularly? Or were there other aspects to it?
No, that was an attempt to incorporate those, unique ag and forestry land uses in Columbia County, their contribution.
with respect to emissions, though.
Well, yeah, well,
Or-
emissions and sequestration too, but both.
Right,
Yeah,
net emissions.
Yeah.
Or however you want to think about
Right.
it. The greenhouse gas aspect.
yes, yeah. So
But
that's,
doesn't Jennifer's second suggestion cover that? Pretty,
Yeah, and I was just
Tersely.
saying to maybe remove the unique issues
right.
part and just say demonstrated knowledge of rural communities similar to Columbia County, particularly ag and forestry land uses and their contributions to emissions and sequestration. It seemed a little bit more straightforward, but
so
Yeah.
It's up
that
in the
sounds
chat.
good.
Nick.
repeat that.
It's up in the
it's
chat.
in the
John.
chat.
Oh, it's in the chat. Okay.
The
Okay.
last one there, just, it's my
Yes.
revised version. And
Okay.
it's in the email I sent you yesterday, Dawn.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I had one more question if,
Sure.
and the modeling, software modeling kind of triggered the question in my mind. Are we asking for do we expect this cap to model and project potential greenhouse gas emissions reductions based on strategies that are, that end up in the plan, that are, recommended strategies or options kind of in a menu? That are we looking for that kind of level of modeling? I mean, that's very complicated.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we've had that discussion, before, Dave, and my feeling is that we are probably have more expertise in those areas than the consultant there we might get. So I think maybe I'm just looking for their understanding. Yeah. So the understanding or they're familiar with those sort of models that Jen and the whole group has been kind of using to look at GHG emissions from forests and farmland uses, but to actually use those models in a specific way, I think that's beyond. I mean, we are the experts.
No, I wasn't really talking specific
Yeah.
of the forest and ag piece, although I agree with you. I think we've done more research with CAFRE and with the work that Jen and her students have done into that than a typical applicant. I was talking about more generally transport. If certain targets are hit, this will lead to a reduction, and they model that out. I mean, not to say we're going to do that, but it's like, this is the significance of this wedge. If this many buildings are insulated, like, how do we shave off emissions? And then when you're looking at like the kind of like cost benefit of different options, do we want to ask that of them? Is that reasonable to ask of a?
Yeah, I mean, you'd think that,
So,
I'm sorry,
yeah, go ahead, Jen.
any group that would potentially, even though we're not asking them to do the greenhouse gas inventory, I think that they need to be very familiar with how to do a greenhouse gas inventory. And then they're going to, work with some existing material, not have to reproduce it all. But I hadn't thought of this before, David, so I'm glad you're bringing it up, but it does kind of seem like they should be able, using the standard, like the EPA, like the spreadsheet tool that the CDR-PC people used. They should be able to do that and just crank out some more projected numbers and see what the differences are. But I
It
don't
can
know.
be somewhat rough. It just it should be a ballpark of,
Right.
what if we're going to invest in this action or this set of actions, or really emphasize it or maybe incentivize it, is what's it worth from a climate, mitigation standpoint. And then, all of the different menu options then have a kind of a cost benefit aspect to them. Maybe not a cost aspect, but a benefit, potential climate benefit. And maybe at some point, as they're costed out, that can be evaluated. I mean, we should try to get as much as we can out of this.
Well, I think we have to have some level of that, because in the end, we're gonna have some kind of matrix that says, well, which one is going to make the most impact for us?
Right.
What are we gonna do? So we're gonna have to have like a pick list of, these are the actions that are gonna be easiest for us to implement and have the most impact on greenhouse gas emissions. So we're gonna have to know you know, at least to some extent, what, how that models out into the future. Whether they,
Maybe we want to ask for that specifically and
Yeah.
let them know they're going to be graded on that. Their ability to, model projected greenhouse gas mitigation benefits by action strategy.
Maybe estimate rather than model, because
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
estimate
fine.
gives them a little bit more flexibility on how you accomplish that. You can do it through the literature or, some of it.
So is that reflected in the goals that we've identified? I mean, I know we asked them to set priorities, but are we creating a new goal here, or is this something that already exists in the document? That we have to be careful of that, I think.
Yeah, I think we should consider including it if it's not in there. It's very important.
Well, we do ask them for to set priorities, and I'm just wondering if what you're talking about is how they establish those priorities, or if it's an added step.
Well, I mean, I don't know. The prioritization, I think, is 2 steps. It's the benefits and the costs. So if these are the benefits, we want them to estimate. We or either they or at some point the county government or someone else needs to also estimate the cost to evaluate how we prioritize. It's maybe not just cost benefit, but that's going to certainly be a big part of what makes the most sense to pursue. Sometimes it's related to where a grant is available. There are other factors that we work on a project here or there for, because there's a lot of community support or there's money available. It's not necessarily the highest priority, but if we're going to ask them to prioritize, there has to be some sort of analysis behind it.
yeah, I think that's captured in like 2 of those points. First one is the technical capability one, the 3rd bullet down, where we're going to change that to just modeling. So they're going to use, that'll be part of it. And then the 2 more down, quality of the proposed tasks, strategy development methodology. Maybe that's the word, we're going to change that wording a little bit. So I think, development of, I think that's what I was trying to get at there, Dave and Brenda.
No, I'm
Development
going through the
methodology.
deliverables in the scope of services to see how they line up with what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm trying to listen and read at the same time.
Yeah. Same here.
Yeah, numbers 5 and 6 look like the place where
Mhm.
4 is government, 5 is community. So 4, they mirror each other in some ways.
all right.
So there's take 5, develop and propose strategies and initiatives that a variety of organizations, businesses, NGOs, and others can look to implement. Develop and propose strategies and initiatives for the county and local government to facilitate those reductions. Strategies and initiatives should address the transportation built environment, blah, blah, blah. But it's nowhere in that does it say, okay, maybe it's in
Prioritize.
6.
Right.
Is it 6? Does it say that they're going to actually prioritize and rank strategies for both government and community, considering quantity of emissions reductions? That's what we're talking about.
And the cost
Feasibility
effectiveness.
and cost. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it is there.
So it's there. Okay. Sorry to be pedantic, but just want to
No,
make
it's
sure.
great that you can just
Yeah.
be sure that it's there. We should, I think, make it clear that that's really important by having some reference to that in the evaluation criteria. Yeah, we're looking for a somewhat, or highly quantitative prioritization process that's not just, sitting around the room and guesstimating what this or that might do or not do, or cost or not cost.
I'm wondering if we can just elaborate a little bit on that initial point, Dave, that you started to point out about the technical capability and industry knowledge. Was that the one you first, understanding of, oh no, that's a different one, but still, understanding of modeling and other digital capabilities to assess emissions goals or something like that. Just so that it's kind of clear that that's what we're talking about there.
Yeah. Technical capability, it's really, do they know what it means to implement these strategies beyond just the ideas? You know, do they have any references to realistic costs, the modeling or estimates of benefits?
Are
And-
there any specific, are these modeling applications that either Don or the task force would need to be conversant with in the future to make best use of this work? Is it like you're above my pay grade here, so I'm struggling a little. Is it like knowing a software application, or what is it that what's the nub of it?
Yeah, there are a variety of different models. I mean, the simplest ones are just Excel spreadsheets that you gather the information, you plug them in, and it, you know, there's formulas built into the spreadsheet that spit out GHG emissions. So,
Okay.
and you could take our existing status quo, say of the government operations, and then, you know, suppose we build out, you know, half our fleet is changed over to EVs. You could easily like change that number within the spreadsheet and find out what effect that might have on our overall emissions. So it can be as simple as that.
But do we not need to know what they are in order to know that we can work with them in the future?
I mean, my thought is that we would do, hopefully in 5 or 10 years, an update of this, and including the greenhouse gas inventory. And that is not something that the community inventory from CDRPC is something that, you know, we didn't do. They did it 10 years ago. They did it again. Presumably they'll do it in the next 10 years. So I don't think we need to have. And Don did do I think Don himself did the government operations greenhouse gas inventory, which is a significant piece of work, by the way. But and so he's conversant, and hopefully the planning department has that capacity in the future, and maybe there's a standardized system that can be used, you know, to measure apples to apples. But I don't think that the board of supervisors or any advisory group like us need to be on a regular basis interacting with those
Right.
software models.
Okay, that's what
I
I'm
mean,
asking.
the standard one that the CDRPC used for their whole community
Mhm.
it's a EPA spreadsheet state inventory tool. And where they've already preloaded all these emissions factors into it, and then you're just plugging data into a big spreadsheet. And so that's kind of for all, not just you know, energy, but all the ag stuff was done in there too. This is the one that my students tried to recreate the livestock numbers from. But I agree, David, the committee and other people in the county don't have to be able to do that themselves. That's why we're hiring them.
Mhm.
And they would create, you know, here's what the numbers would look like if you did X, Y, and Z. And that's the basis then for developing policy recommendations. So but it would be helpful if I do think that they need to have some minimum knowledge of being able to make those estimates themselves. That would be who we're hiring to, and it doesn't have to be a fancy model. It could be a simple one. If it was fancy, that would be even better, but
That's what we're grading them on.
So yeah, I think you've answered my question, but I come from an industry where the software or modeling is often proprietary. That's their unique place in the market, that they've developed software or modeling that no one else has. So I just want to make sure that if we do this in 5 years or 10 years, we have something we can hand off, that we don't have to start over again. And also, in the event that Don needs to manipulate it, he can add to it, or add that, you know, he could reasonably be expected to do so. But if you're saying the EPA model is more or less the industry standard and everybody uses it, then we're all speaking the same language. That's fine.
I mean,
I'm happy.
technically, what we're asking them to be able to do is do something better for the land use part, but I would also say that that's not private. The private sector isn't doing that stuff. These are all tools that are in academia and out there in the
Okay.
science world that,
Perfect. That makes me happy. Thank you.
I mean, maybe we should say standard tool, familiarity with standard greenhouse gas assessment tools or something like that, just so that they're not doing something that's like behind the black box and we don't really know how they came up with these numbers. That would probably not be so good.
Well, we're going to evaluate the technical capability, so that can be part of the evaluation. That could be a follow-up
Right.
question.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the evaluation. Or if they're proposing something that's proprietary and we won't be able to use in the future, then
Right.
they're not going to score very high.
And if it's not clear from their proposal, we can ask
Yeah.
every applicant to elaborate on that point.
Yep. Okay.
Don, if we're finished with the review, I just had a question about process and timing,
Yeah.
like what happens next?
Yep. Well, first I will put all these thoughts together, go through these this one-page evaluation criteria, come up with another version. It shouldn't take me too long to do that. Hopefully, I'm not back here until next week, Monday through Thursday. So hopefully next week I'll get this all together. Then if you feel comfortable with it, then it goes to, I think we'll run it by Marissa one more time. And then send it to DEC for their look, which would be, I'm guessing, like week of June 15th. These are all best case scenario. So middle of June, I think we'll send it out to DEC for their look. I'm hoping it doesn't take very long. So hopefully by the end of June, DEC will send it back to us. Yes, says everything looks great. Go ahead and publish it, and then we can publish it and send it out to consultants first week in July. That's what I'm hoping.
How long do we keep it open for? It may have been written in
6 weeks. So July, so mid to end of August, we will have proposals back. In the meantime, we will be answering questions from consultants. They have the opportunity to send us questions, everything. If anybody on the committee here gets a question from a consultant, it all gets fed through Marissa. All right. So we do not answer any questions on our own. So make sure if you get any kind of communication from consultants, send it to me or Patrice, and we send it directly to Marissa in purchasing, and she answers those questions directly. To make sure the whole process is being followed properly. Then after 6 weeks, we sit down, look at the proposals that have come in, and we go through our scoring criteria that we just developed here. Apply a score to each proposal. Pick out our best one, send it out, and then it goes through the committee and Board of Supervisors approval process. We write up a contract, of course, in the meantime, with a consultant that goes through the county government committee, probably the finance committee. I'm not sure who else it has to go through. Then it goes through the Board of Supervisors for the final approval of the contract with the consultant.
So if all goes well and we publish it in July, maybe the committee is reviewing it in September, maybe doing follow-up questions that we send back out to all the consultants.
Yeah.
So that delays things, who knows, a month or so. So maybe in October, we're maybe before Thanksgiving, I'm not trying to let it slide, but I'm being realistic. We're making a recommendation at that point to the Board of Supervisors, something along those lines. So maybe by the middle of the first quarter of 2026, we could launch it, 2027.
Yeah, I
First quarter.
I updated my tentative timeline a little bit, and I think best case scenario, we would have a consultant on board sometime in January, probably the end of January, I think would be the earliest we would actually have
Okay.
our initial sit down with our hired consultant and DEC to just have that first initial kickoff meeting and start the whole process. End of January. That's my hope.
Okay. Thanks, Don. That's helpful.
Was there any, Ron, you had a question about those different scopes of GHG emissions?
Yeah, I just wanted, that was very beginning, how was that?
Can I ask a question while Ron's
Sure,
looking?
yeah, go ahead.
Or did you, it was just in the stage at which we finally select so how does that work? This committee makes a recommendation, and then the final selection is up to the Board of Supervisors?
Yeah, they have,
By
yeah,
the Board of Supervisors at that point, so
And they vote?
you know, then
yes, yeah.
it need to be approved by the Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
Yeah, those scope, I looked that up, Ron. You had a question about the scope 1, 2, and 3.
Of emissions,
Yeah.
you know, yep. Mhm.
So scope 1 is like direct emissions from like putting gasoline in the cars, diesel fuel in the trucks, natural gas or propane into the boilers in the building. Those are the emissions from that are scope 1. Direct emissions from what the government or other community businesses do.
Okay.
Scope 2 is like one level separated from that. So scope 2 would be like the emissions from electric generating plants, like Athens Generating across the river, or some other nuclear plant out in Western New York, supplying electricity. Even though we're not producing those emissions directly, we're using electricity that those power plants emit. So that's scope 2. And scope 3 is even like one more level beyond that. It's like the emissions caused by Amazon delivering paper products to the county 401 building, or producing, we purchase a bunch of paper products, paper towels or paper plates or something, and the energy that goes into producing those products, and also the emissions that are generated when we put them in a landfill. Those are called scope 3 emissions. So it's like each level is like one more level of separation.
It's harder to identify too and track down.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Scope 3 are harder to identify, but they're also the largest
Overall,
in this amount. So yeah. So like,
helpful. Thank you.
yeah. Putting gas in the car, that's scope 1. Charging the electric car, that would be scope 2. Right. So we're using electricity, but we're not generating those emissions. It's being generated off site in some other, power plant somewhere. Those would be scope 2. Scope 3 would be the amount of energy that it takes to actually build the car, out in Michigan or something. So that's sort of that's my best simplified explanation what those different scopes are.
No, thank you. That's good.
Any other questions?
If we, just to follow up on that, if we have transmissions that are traveling through the county, but the county doesn't make use of, are we charged with those emissions? Like the power line, high density power lines and things like that?
I don't,
No?
no, I don't think so. No. no.
Okay.
Only something that actually has something to do with either government
Activity.
operations or the community.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about the technical issue before. I don't know if that question is still relevant, but I couldn't see anyone I lost the screen somehow.
Okay. Like,
No worries, Mike.
Yeah.
We kind of went back to the RFP and just evaluated that it
Yeah.
includes a cost benefit statement. So we were all happy with that. That was there.
A lot of this is based on the model, isn't it, Jennifer? The results.
Well, yes, but I guess there,
It's well tested.
there's so many different ways to estimate this stuff and the error bars are huge on it. So there's, there's a lot of approaches and, these consultants could take. And I do think that part of our kind of sub-objective was to do a better job than is the standard for the landscape emissions, land use emissions. So I'm hoping that whoever we get will have some of that expertise, but I'm not holding my breath because I just don't think there are very many people that are doing that right now. So, but maybe even if they don't have the technical expertise to estimate those emissions, they would have the smarts and the, ability to think about the rural landscape and just use the literature to think through what the potential strategies are for reducing those estimated emissions. So,
And to
hopefully
begin,
they'll-
and to develop a plan that allows you to reduce some because you can't reduce, it's better than not doing anything.
what we used to always say, Jennifer, when I was in my consulting life, it's the consultants aren't going to answer the question. It's the consultants kind of draw the answers out of the client. It is. I mean, so best case scenario, we have a consultant that knows how to talk to us and have an in-depth discussion and at least understands the problems and knows how to talk about these things on yours and David's and our level,
knows what the good questions are to pose to us as well.
Yeah, a lot of it is communication strategy and ability, with the community too. How to draw responses. That's hopefully going to be a big part of this, so we can engage.
Are we going to go through the RFP itself in terms of questions?
If you have some, I think we're done with the evaluation part of it, but if you have some questions about the RFP.
I just
can
want to
take
go
a look
back to the NWBE on page 6. It looks like the first sentence is not finished. And I'm wondering if it was meant to say requirement, period. It says it has a total minority and women-owned business, blah, 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 but it doesn't say requirement. And I think it'd be useful to say requirement, but in any event, the sentence hasn't ended.
At the bottom of page 6, the NWB.
Yep, first sentence in that paragraph.
Yeah.
Ed,
Yeah.
So
The
I think
sentence
you-
is 3 lines long. So
Yeah, I think we just add requirement with a period, if that's useful. And then above that, it says the initial contract term for this proposal is 2 years, and it's the county's intention to complete the development of the CAP within 18 to 24 months from the date that contract is entered into by both parties. I didn't see a place where we asked them if they were available for that time period. Are we just assuming that if they bid for this, that they are available, or do we ask that question directly?
yeah, I think that's assumed if they're going to respond to the proposal, that they will.
Yeah, I would think so too.
Well, in my industry, we always ask that question because then people will say, really? Oh,
Yeah, looking at the RFPs before, I do remember that sentence is included. And I always wondered why, but it is included a lot. So yes.
And then on page 8, there, I see notes from you and also Marissa on public meeting. And I'm wondering if the insertion of public stakeholder meeting would be clearer than just public meeting. Or maybe it's not limited to stakeholders, maybe it's, but the conversation seems to be more about whether or not the meetings can be virtual or public. But I think what we want is a meeting that includes the public.
Yes.
And I had just one, I think more. The contract extensions, which is on page 16, allows for 2 6-month extensions. And I'm wondering if those extensions align with the funding sunsets that we have for the grant.
16. So yes, we have. I'm going to open this up. So the
And there's one housekeeping issue. The cover needs to update to the new county emails. They were
Yeah.
corrected in the body of the document, but not on the cover.
Yep. Where's my timeline?
I didn't know how much of this was written specifically for this project and how much of it is standard county language. That's the reason I'm asking the question.
Mostly everything before contract period.
I thought the DEC funding was 5 years. That's what I
Yeah.
remember. So we should be okay. But there's some funding coming from the county, right?
Yeah,
There's a match.
yes. I think it was 2030. I have to look up.
We don't have to do it now. I just want us to be aware of it. That's
Yeah,
all.
there's, I believe there's plenty of time, Brenda, for
Okay.
those extensions. Yes. Yep.
John, real quick, if Brenda's finished.
I'm finished.
On page 8, we are calling for at least one public hearing on the final draft of the cap.
Yep.
We want to make that a final draft. You know, is that after it's been finalized, we're presenting it to people, or are we soliciting feedback specifically, public comment? I think it's probably the latter. Maybe that's pointed out somewhere else. It's like here's the draft for public comment and feedback, which could be incorporated, right? I mean, I think we would want to have that one session at the end. This calls for 2 meetings, one at the beginning, kind of describing the process, the work that's done. There's a completed draft, but not the final version that's been finalized and sent to the Board of Supervisors, right? And we present that and then incorporate any public feedback that is worth it, you know, that we determine warrants. I don't know. Anyway, that was one small thing. That's all.
Yeah, well, it's initial draft and a second draft for review by local officials. Then the final draft, where I call it the final draft, incorporating comments received.
Are
So
the
it's still, you know, it's a draft until the board actually adopts it, I guess is, you know, that's why
okay. Well, I mean, there's plenty of time
refer to it as a draft, but yeah.
delineate, you know, when they plan the second public meeting, that it should include an opportunity for public comment. I mean, I would imagine that would always be included.
Oh, yeah,
But,
some of this, with that work plan there, some of that is directly word for word from DEC.
Mhm.
Their work plan comments. You remember that took months.
I remember, yeah, so we shouldn't futz with it.
Yeah, some of that is directly from them, the wording, Dave.
Yeah.
So,
But Ron, we would have after the public hearing associated with this committee's work, once it goes to committee and to the Board of Supervisors, we would hold a public hearing on the adoption of the plan, correct?
yep, you're muted, man.
Can't hear you, Ron.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, Brenda. This is not a local law that requires a public hearing. It's a plan. It's a recommended plan. So I don't know that it's going to require a public hearing. We could, but that's a question for Rob Fitzsimmons. I think a little bit technicality.
Yeah, I think that is that final public meeting or hearing, whatever. I think that is supposed to be the official
Yeah.
public hearing for the plan before the board adopts it. That's what we're getting at. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so, but
And I think that's DEC. Even if it doesn't require that by the county, I think DEC wants to have that final public hearing on it before the board adopts it. That's in the work plan. Okay. I think you're talking, Brenda, but I don't hear you.
Brenda's talking, but I don't hear her.
So this is unlike a comprehensive plan, which in the process is defined in statute. This is not defined in statute.
That's my understanding. Yeah.
No, not
Okay.
really. Yeah, yeah. This
Okay.
is- yeah. Okay. Anything else from anybody?
Well, thank you, Don. I know this has been a long process, but
Yeah, yes. Well,
sure.
yeah, we ran into some state level bureaucracy on our part. You know,
Thank you for distinguishing that.
well, from now on, it's all going to be county level bureaucracy, unfortunately, but we will get through it as quickly as we can. Yeah.
Thanks,
Okay.
Don.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you,
Thank you,
Don.
everyone.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.